this is my nice
welcome everyone. I've been like really waiting on this for weeks now, and I can't wait to be here. Actually, I wanted to start off with a little story. Actually, the first TEE I tried to deploy on was actually on iExec, and I was like scrolling through Red Hat and like IBM, and just to see all the different like TEE options. And I remember like 2 years ago, it was so confusing, and just like understanding what the tech was doing, what it delivered, and what were the promises. And so,
but it was 2 years ago. Now it's easy.
And now it's different, right? It's totally different. And you heard from Andrew, who is an expert in this stuff, really kind of break down the applicable usage of this stuff. But like we're going to really break down in this talk what the technicals are, right? So the first question is, each of you work with all of the core components of your protocol. You know all of the ins and outs. I want to hear it from your guys' perspective on exactly what it is that you are defending against. Because we're building confidential compute, but maybe we have a different prerogative as far as what it is that we're trying to anonymize. Is that shaping the way that you guys are building on-prem AI? Is it your customer? Is their perception of confidential AI the way that you're building TEE, or does it have nothing to do with their requests and has more to do with best security practices that you guys are still sort of focused on? And I would love if you want to take that question first, if you want to take a stab at it.
It's a bit of both. The customer comes with their set of like non-negotiables, but then they also come with more questions. Like they don't know like the differences between these different texts, like MPCTs. We just tweet about them, but a lot of people, they just have a preconceived notion, so they come with like extra questions. So obviously we try to take into account like their concerns and requirements, but then we also have to be opinionated about like what we offer them, and be honest if like we don't offer them exactly what they want. So yeah, that's how we kind of approach that. In like terms of specifics, they usually just come and say like, hey, we don't want like random people being able to access our data. And you talk to them, it's like, what does that mean? And then they say like decentralized, and they add all these buzzwords. It's like you have to talk to them over a long time to actually understand what they mean. But usually it comes down to like the triad, which comes from like very basic cryptography of like confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And they want to be able to keep the data confidential from like outside observers, while also being able to say like this is the data, it hasn't been changed, it stayed the same, and they want certain guarantees on the uptime of being able to access the data, and so we try our best to build towards those group requirements, and setting them makes sense for our customers.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot to think about. That's like a lot. That's like multidimensional on how many things you. So it's like very customer focused. Yeah. That's key. And how about you guys? Like from a customer angle, like how do you get your feedback for TEE development? I think that's a great way of putting it.
Okay, how we get the feedback from the TEE? So it's a quite complex technology, so we've got a lot of feedback, but we keep improving, and that's cool because we are improving the process, but in the same time, the technology is improving too. Like we used to work with SGX like 2 years ago when you tried iExec TEs, it was on SGX, but now we are shifting on TDX, Trusted Domain Extension, and it's become way more powerful, and a lot of barrier we add just for like now it's become really easy to, for who don't know TDX, you can now run an entire VM in the enclave. So basically it's, you've got endless possibilities, and feedback, how we get feedback is by testing, and like we sponsored a lot of hackathon. We sponsored is from I think three weeks ago, and that's crazy how you see how we are improving our process and our technology, our documentation. The technology is improving, and it's become more and more easy to do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, feedback is so important, but through the hackathons, I think that's a really great way of just getting the immediate feedback there. But
maybe I can build here. So I'm Matej, head of partnerships at Oasis, and I'm more on the commercial side, so I'm not that technical. But due to the nature of our tech stack, we need to be pretty technical, even on the BD side, right? And I would say, in terms of the product itself, right, around these, we're pretty opinionated, right? Because as sorry, how to pronounce your name?
Mikerah.
Mikerah, sorry. We need, people usually don't know what they really want when they come to us, right? And in terms of verifiability, trustlessness, we know where we want to be, right? There's a big focus on, reproducible builds, the continuous attestations, and the user usually doesn't know what they want. They want it to be decentralized, they want it to be verifiable, they want it to be confidential, and this is where we strive more towards enabling a great developer experience while being very opinionated around our TE framework, right? And it's not just TEs with us. There's a combination, but we can get into that later. Yeah, but it's actually quite opinionated on our side.
Perfect. Yeah, you
Just
wanted
a
to
quick
add
question. What do you mean when you say they don't really want what they want? Because we are solving something clear with TE. Usually, builders are coming because they need privacy in their process.
Yeah, they know that, right? But how to implement that, they don't really know. At least from our experience, right? How to have continuous attestations, how to have the reproducibility of those builds to actually know that if the attestation is valid, there is just a check mark, right? So around that, we're pretty opinionated how we want to enable it, right? But yeah, they know they want something, some confidential compute that's also verifiable, right? But this is where usually their kind of idea ends, at least in our perspective.
On top of that, on the confidential compute part, the previous panels, they discussed a lot of MPC and also like ZK, and we have all TEE sort of here today. I'm with Phala. We're also doing TDX in the cloud as well. But like it comes with its own trade-offs, obviously. And so no one's really happy with just like one only and being a maximalist on one only. It seems like there's like a really nice benefit to doing using all of them for some specific use case, obviously. But how do you design your sort of mainly the cryptographic stack from what you hear from the tech side, from what you're actually doing? How are you kind of choosing to optimize on the cryptography? Because it seems like because of the SGX and the TDX attack, that was yet a cryptographic mistake. So the whole
Not
TEE
really.
dot fail. Sorry, go
Not
ahead.
really.
Not really?
Not really.
Not
I mean,
really.
it was by design in 2022, right? It was. I think that the mistake was in the implementation of the protocols, right? Because they didn't see that the SGX v2 had deterministic memory, right? And that enabled the hack, right? So I think it's not necessarily. I mean, for Intel, this was out of scope, right? For the use cases that they had. So it's not really, I would say, an exploit. And we, at least at Oasis, we mitigated that with. We basically overuse a combination of MPC and TE, right? So our key manager is, let's say, sort of like a custom MPC scheme, right? Where the keys are not derived from the TEs. So we weren't really, we didn't have any outage or break or any breaks of our enclaves with the TE fail attacks. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, neither did we. But that's not necessarily the problem, right? Because it's still non-deterministic. You have a physical device, and then you can still break into it with less than $1,000 of hardware, and there's a breach that could occur. So how do you stress about this?
No, everybody heard about this FUD about breaking TEs, but that's crazy. Like you will need to access the hardware, but so it means you will need, if you are distributed and using AWS, Azure, stuff like that, you need to go in the server, don't access to the machine, don't break the BIOS, stuff like that. That's basically impossible, and that's crazy, this FUD, because it was pretty funny. I think it's more business stuff like, TE is shit, but no, TE got some...
I think it was presented a little bit more bombastic than it really was. I mean, of course, if you have decentralized nodes and anybody can run their own TE hardware at home and they're a malicious node, right? They don't need to even break into a server, right? But I think with the initiative of proof of cloud, they're looking to.
Yeah, but you can manage who.
Of course. You can whitelist who do you allow.
That's the composability aspect of it, because there's even like Secret and everyone else is going into proof of cloud, and I think there's a lot of people and teams here that are discussing this new way of doing the booting up process and the signing of the actual hardware, and as well as like how does the technician even go in to the server. But like, I mean, it's still your responsibility to mitigate the attack, though.
Of course, yeah.
Like they're going to just like wave it off and say like it's your problem. So I know you didn't get really a chance to kind of talk about how you want to.
Like it really, the way we've built our tech stack is it's really dependent on how our customers deploy it. We're mainly focused on MPC, but we like implement our tech stack with the understanding that for a production system, you'll run it inside of a TE, either through like SGX or with TDX or something like that. So for us, like it didn't really affect our plans or how we build. It's more like, okay, we need more documentation, we need more education. We just need to be a bit more mindful and careful about how we present ourselves and present what we've built to our customers, basically.
So the whole splitting of the responsibility, the composability, and then enabling your infrastructure so that it is just in general just defensive in depth. And I think in terms of the whole where's the key and where's the server is really the key problem here. And we wanted to ask, like, in a world really where it's like where keys and secrets are split across potentially multiple parties and companies, what is the most underestimated cryptographic or even human risk that you see emerging that you need to start solving now? Because in the schemes of multi-party computation and even with FHE and ZK, the people who are experts in these domains need the advice and secure advice from others in terms of how they actually will interop these two different schemes together if they're going to ever build like perfect privacy or perfect anonymity or something. So what in your guys' heads, when are you worried about anything that teams are building on today that they're not necessarily solving the human problem?
OVH, potentially.
OVH?
Yeah, so there was a recent backup issue that happened with Integrity, which is a confidentiality network on Polkadot. And if I understand correctly, they had some scheduled maintenance for their network. And in the middle of the scheduled maintenance, some OVH person sort of did their own scheduled maintenance for the actual machine that they were using for the keys. And if I understand correctly, there was an issue on the machine itself, and they didn't alert the team that this had happened.
But I think there was a design flaw there because they tied the key to the exact motherboard. I think instead of having a key manager handling that, right? If you're relying on exactly on that hardware, right, then the hardware burns down. Even if there wouldn't be OVH, an unplanned maintenance, they would still get locked out of that chip, right?
Yeah, but there's whenever I pay for cloud services, they should tell me if they're going to be doing some maintenance and if something goes wrong during that maintenance.
I mean,
and
I think you shouldn't rely that much on hardware. That's why we're using MPC for that key distribution, right? So you can change the committee, right? Let's say an entity goes rogue, right? You want to get them out of the committee, right? You want to kind of out of the compute committee or the key manager committee, right? You want to have that kind of credibility because the system is dynamic, right? Maybe you can trust somebody now, but maybe you can't in a year, right? We can see with the KOLs on X how that works, right?
It's still a human problem of communication, I would say.
I'd say
and
it
even
was protocol design.
Going back to the previous point of perhaps in the ideal deployment, they shouldn't have had the key tied to the hardware. But if it's a production running system, what can you do? You can only plan for it.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. People think that if they slap on TEs, then it's all good and things work, right? It's not enough, right? That's the thing, at least from our perspective, right? That's why we have such an opinionated stack that is an enhanced TE solution, right? That doesn't rely solely on TEs. TEs are very usable, right? For the use cases that we have now, they're the most usable PET, right? Privacy enhancing tech, with its drawbacks, and you need to understand those drawbacks and mitigate them to your best ability, right? And that's it. And that's why I think the fallacy is, just put in a TE and you're good, is where the problem lies with the majority of these TE problems, right?
I think everybody realized that you need now to combine, it's why there is hybrid pets. You need to combine, we are working at iExec to add ZK proof for the remote attestation and lower the price when you are storing it on chain. And but about the mitigation, the possible mitigation of this problem, you can as well have different vendor, not rely on one kind of for machine vendor and stuff like that,
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess we also have to realize that a lot of the teams building are startups, and some of them get perks for using certain providers over others, and it just comes down to human and social issues for the choices that we make for the tech stacks that we use, right? It's less about the tech and more about the human aspect. So yeah.
But I can tell you from the BD perspective, right?
Yeah.
When I'm talking to these new projects, right? And everybody's, then, I can just use, Google attestations, Google TDX, and then GCP attestations, or AWS and their attestations. It's like, it's super easy, right? We can do it. We can do this ourselves. We don't need that tech stack. And while you've been building this, for years now, and you have, you thought about all the possible edge cases and the mitigations for it. So I would really like to see the space, follow the ethos that used to be, building Legos, and building on top of each other, instead of everybody trying to reinvent, the wheel by themselves. And this, I think in DeFi we saw this, maybe even too much, with all the looping happening. And then 500 million is collateralized with 50 million. But in terms of the tech stack, yeah, I would love to see more, building on top of each other.
Let's talk about that layering really quick. And I think we can all have our quick little hot takes on what that should and shouldn't be. And I think on a user's perspective, if you're going to be ultimately controlling some kind of policy on behalf of the user, and we're all decentralized thinkers out here, so I'm thinking, like, what's trust if you have it in a TEE? And then what are the ways that you can enable trustlessness, or zero trust in that environment if you're going to have AI, which is going to be the consumer-facing product, as that is the statistic now. It's like, I think 95% of all consumer electronics will eventually be artificially intelligent in some way. But if it's a policy that it's under and it's using your data and it's some kind of governance, how do you guys think about policy in relation to AI with TEE, or even potentially these solutions with them? Yeah, you wanted to...
About that, I think it's, everybody has its own technology, but regarding iExec, we've got a specific tool called Data Protector, able to, because we are combining DCC, TEE with blockchain. And with blockchain, we can set some governance rules, tokenization stuff. So basically, you can protect the data, then drop it in the TEE, be computed by an application that someone owns, and there is some governance rules. So you can exactly, you know exactly who is using your data from the end to end, and who is using the data, with which application, and how, and which worker, etc. So we've got I think, a pretty cool policy management at iExec with our tool.
I haven't heard that before.
It was a promotion time, sorry.
No, I mean, it's good. Yeah, everybody has different use cases. For us, it was like the recent example of Talos, which is like this autonomous agent framework that's built on Arbitrum, and the main agent is deployed within our tech stack, right? And how they're doing it, you have continuous, policy updates are all written on chain. So you can have a whole, history of what's being done, and we also implemented for them like a multi-sig control, where for any update of the code, right, there needs to be 4 or 5 signers to be able to upgrade the code of the agent, like completely autonomous, like AGI, ASI, whatever. Updating itself, I don't think we're there yet. Right now, everything is still in some shape or form,
Do you guys agree? Do you think we're getting closer, or are we nowhere near that right now?
I don't know.
let's hear.
I don't know. Are we close to AGI? I don't know.
No, not even AGI, just autonomous, trust-based
Oh, that's AGI.
AI.
Yeah. I mean,
versus trustless-based
no, the
AI.
thing is that with TEs, you always have admins, right? And for
And
that
with any
admin,
tech, you always have admins.
Oh, sorry?
With any tech
Yeah,
stack,
exactly.
you always
But
have an admin.
here specifically, you need admins, and when will the agent be its own admin that
That's the
will
question,
change its
right?
own policies?
Is it? Yeah.
I don't see that happening quickly, because basically, I mean, you can do that. Obviously, you can relinquish control and just let it rip and see what happens, right? But if we're mostly focused on DeFi, right, and DeFi agents. I don't know who's going to be willing to put money in self.
I mean, people do it all the time. Like we did just the other week, some guy was just like, yeah, like our money was being managed by some money management managers, and we lost $90 million.
Of course. No, but that's different. They thought the money manager, the risk partners or the risk managers were good, right? But imagine you put money in a wallet of an agent that doesn't have an admin, right? So it can do whatever it wants. It upgrades itself, right? And you don't know which way it's going to go, right? So I imagine, like with the risk managers, people thought they know how to manage risk, so it's going to be profitable, right? With having an agent be upgrading itself, I don't know.
That's right, and so that gets us into our final question, which I know what time is up, but I did wanted to ask, what is censorship then? Because if it's going to be on its own versus being controlled by the admin, or there is a policy that's being,
I think there needs to be transparency over governance, right? You can have time delays on upgrades, multi-sig upgrades, all of that, right? And that's the transparency you get, and then you can vote with your money. Like very specifically, this is for like DeFi agents or something like that, right? I see the most use case right here. But in terms of censorship, yeah, you can see it. It's happening across the space. I don't know how it's going to affect our space, but yeah, depends project to project.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, and I wish we can go longer on some of these topics and these questions, but it was a pleasure seeing and meeting all of you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.